Welcome everyone to our In Our Defense series. Today we're going to cover the how to select fighter jet maintenance stands. I'm Chad Catron, part of the sales team here at Spika Design Manufacturing. I'd like to go around and have everyone introduce themselves if they would. Tom, if we could start with you.
Hi, I'm Tom Spika. I'm the founder and Chief Innovation Officer for Spika Manufacturing. Have been involved with the design since the beginning of our company, and work now more on special projects, some of the marketing of bringing our ideas out to the ones that need them.
Katie?
I'm Katie Spika, and I am the CEO here.
Thank you. And Shannon?
Shannon Rhea, Director of Design, Engineering, and Drafting. Lead the team of engineers and drafters that put these concepts into reality. So.
All right, thanks guys for joining us today for this second series of ours. Today I'd like us to visit about fighter jets and other fixed wing aircraft, if applicable. What is it that brings us all to the table to be able to provide that best access on the different fighter jets? And what is it that we're looking for to be able to provide that premium access for our users?
I guess I would kind of take that to start with. The one thing that's always struck me is that even though they're all grouped into the fighter jet category, there's significant differences in the different aircraft that are out there. And not only that, some very significant differences in the way the users are wanting to apply their access solutions. The wings, many times we find that the interface with the platforms in the wings vary quite a bit from facility to facility. Some want to have our platforms pass under the wings. Some want them to meet up with the very edge. There's times even that all they're really interested in are railing around the wings themselves so that they can stand on the wings but not fall off. So it's really hard to have a fixed version that we would market to say this is, you know, the ideal stand for an F-15 or F-18 or an F-35, just because there's so many differences out there in what people are wanting from that platform.
Yeah, I agree. And you touched on it about the kind of underwing or overwing. And I know that's something that's come up for our team a lot, is determining what's best there. And the other part I think about with that is fuel loads. I know we've run into discussions with customers before where we are providing the platform to go under the wing, but it's very, very tight fit. And if they got, more fuel versus less fuel in it, that can change the elevation slightly. But if we're too tight of a fit, it can potentially cause some interference there.
That's for sure. That's where our adjustability is really important, that we have a range that will accommodate that. Another thing is if they have stores or tanks on the wings themselves when they're in a maintenance bay, that can definitely play into how we fit up against things, because you have an obstacle there, both protruding off the edge of the wing and definitely underneath it. So there's a lot needs to be taken into account. And then, of course, when you get into the empennage, there's such differences there between the different aircraft, and it can be really challenging to be able to provide the kind of access and keep it very safe and yet adjustable. You start working with angles of vertical angles that you have to be able to accommodate as you go up and down. A lot of design work goes into that, and Shandon, I think, has probably really had a lot more experience in trying to come up with solutions for the customers. What do you find in Shandon?
Depending on the aircraft, the needs of the user really play a part in how the system comes together. We often deal with, usually encompassing the full aircraft is the main need we're trying to address. And with the dihedral, the wings, we usually are coming up with a unique platforms just for the wings themselves. And if the heights are pretty well known, say, there's not going to be different fuel weights and everything, we might get by with a fixed system. But really, like Tom was mentioning, height adjustment, we really can get that in there to accommodate different heights of the aircraft within a good range. But accommodating that wing to body area usually results in pretty trapezoidal type platforms that we can accommodate the angle of the wing and continuously walk from body to wing and across wing to the platforms behind them. That seems to be pretty common method we're giving the ability to do, and the use of crossover rails and such, we're giving a fully enclosed system. And that, sometimes we can get away with, Firejet doesn't have too many contours, so we're not always looking at sliders, but with height range and height adjustability, sliders come into play, and we can accommodate different contact points at different heights, and we might end up with sliders. I think you can probably share this since I have them up. Just looking at designs we've done recently for F5 here, you can see it's a full round system, and the user gave us quite a bit of input that was able to help us on where they needed access and where they needed stairs and where they didn't, and certain aspects as far as what they like to do on the system. This one, they like to just walk across the wings, so they might not need those stairs back there behind the wing. But you see, the system's fully encompassed, and you can work around it and work with the systems in different subsections, so you don't have to do a full system here. But just working with the customer on knowing where they want to go and where they have their needs, we can accommodate that.
That's a great point, Shannon, about the customer's input in bringing that in, because that is something that, we get a lot of customers that contact us thinking we are the expert, but a lot of our direction needs to be taken from what they are accessing and what their preference is. And that drawing that you shared was a great version of also looking at space constraints. If they want stairs coming off a certain way, so that they preserve space in other areas and whatnot. So I think that's a great point you made there. Kate, what is it do you have any thoughts on what it is that our team brings to that table to help our users gain that access and do it safely?
For us, what we offer is just a long history of experience doing this safe upper level access and complete protection. One thing I was going to ask you guys is when you might switch from lanyards and fall protection or fall arrest systems to a platform, because I know that's really common in fixed wing maintenance, is more of the fall arrest systems. And so we're, of course, experts more in the platform side of it, and know how to provide OSHA compliance, are able to customize like you guys have been saying. But do you have thoughts on when a platform makes more sense? You talked about space constraints, and that's one area where platforms are less convenient than fall arrest systems. So when does it make sense to switch from one to the other? Do you guys have experience working with customers through that debate?
Well, so strictly, it's usually a safety decision. So is what we provide with our platforms and railing is a completely passive fall protection system, where once the user's up there, they don't have to lanyard into anything, because anytime you have the user having to put on a harness and a lanyard, it's at the user's risk that they follow that every time. Whereas if you have a fully encompassed system, once they're up there, they're always safe. They don't have to intentionally do anything different than having all the platforms in place and the handrail. So it's not reliant on user action. So
Great.
And I think that the fall arrest is a little more challenging to try and keep the ranges right, because you have a relatively narrow wing there, but it's quite long, and so to be able to have full range of that wing and not be tethered off too tight or have restrictions, and that's always the thing that the users are kind of fighting against, not only the time it takes and the effort to to implement a lanyard, it's a restriction that it just kind of encumbers what they're trying to do. So it's certainly advantageous from the user's perspective to have this that they push up. And the thing with these, when you look at Shandon's drawing, it looks like it's a very complex system, but they're designed in sensible modules that position very, very easily. So you can, basically in a matter of a few minutes, put everything up in place. They lock together, click together, and you have it ready to operate. And that's very important, again, to the users, ultimately the safety, because users, if it takes too long to try and enact some sort of a safety device, they tend to find ways to not do it. So it's really important that we design these to where they're very easy and quick to do, and the user can tell there's much more advantage to having it there than not, which is really hard to say with other options.
Yeah. And I think of kind of piggybacking off that, just the platform itself is it feels like a continuation of the floor. You're on a solid surface. You're not kind of always thinking about having that tether on your back. Like, yes, it will keep you safe, but you're still, in order for that to work and actually do its job, that means you've stepped off something or fallen for that to engage.
Yeah.
Where this is really just a continuation of your regular work surface and works the same as if you were working on the ground.
I was going to, on that note, I was going to ask some of the maybe accessories that our customers often ask for. Like you say, it is just an elevated workstation. And so I know we often are able to provide places for tool storage or laptops or lighting. What are the kind of features like that may be useful to somebody looking at getting a stand for a fighter jet?
Yeah, there's a lot of options that our company can offer in that line. I mean, you kind of mentioned some of them, but the air and electric hookups, having them available for them to use their tooling on the stand, to tool trays or laptop trays, providing the under deck and above deck lighting, I think is a huge feature, very commonly added on to our units by our customers. In my opinion, we're here to make everybody's life easier while keeping them safe doing so. So all the, extra bells and whistles, so to speak, are really just meant for them. And if they have a desire to use them and make their job more efficient, then it's something that we can certainly look at adding on. Tom, Shannon, you got other thoughts on kind of those different add-ons?
Yeah, I think that there's definite value in a lot of those. That again, our intent is primarily to provide a safe work environment, but we also want to facilitate the process that they're doing, and oftentimes having those types of accessories, whether it's tool trays or laptop trays or things like that save them going back up and down, is quite valuable. But again, it's what the user is wanting, and we sell them as accessories because not everybody wants them, and we aren't wanting to put out a product that they're buying stuff that they're just not going to use. Yeah. And that's why we offer clear from the very bare bones railing that basically is a floor mount rail with crossover rails that go over the wings that don't have platforms clear around them, because a lot of the users don't feel like they need the platform. All they need is a rail to keep them from falling off, and they can save a lot of money. They can save a lot of space that these take up when they're not using them. So those are definite options that have their place for certain facilities. And then, you know, you go clear to the other end of a fully encompassing system like Shandon was showing there. And, you know, with all the different accessories that really make it as ideal as you can get. And, you know, that we have everything in between. So I think the key is for the users to really decide what they want. Talk with our designers to find out what all we can do, and then decide what would they like it to be able to do. What are their challenges right now? How are they doing it, and how are they finding it's difficult or forcing a rather unsafe condition? And then come back to us and say, all right, here's what we'd like you to design up for us, and let us see what it looks like. So it's that interaction that's going to ensure the right system for each user. Shandon, did you have thoughts on that too?
I think you covered it pretty well. We have a lot of offerings, and it really comes down to what each user is wanting out of the system. You know, you don't always need all the bells and whistles, but sometimes those are very helpful, and we got those accommodations, and can easily fit them to most systems and even show you what it looks like. So based on input, that's usually the biggest driver.
Even on these full systems, they don't have to always be everything in place to use it in a particular area. Like if you just need the cockpit access, maybe you're just working that area, it can be designed where you just push that one module with its stair up to it, and you've got access and a safe work area just for that spot right there. Or if you're just wanting to work on the empennage, you can just put those modules up, and you don't have to set the whole thing up to create a safe environment. So, you know, a lot of times you're only working on one particular area of the aircraft, maybe one wing, or, you know, just a certain area. And to have the versatility of just grabbing the required stands for that, push it into place, and get on with your process, it's really quick.
Yeah. Well, great. Does anybody have any final thoughts? I think we shared a lot of information here.
I was wondering if you guys have thoughts on common considerations our clients maybe haven't considered when they come. So either maybe areas of risk if they're shopping for a work platform, and if they overlook this aspect, they might end up with something they don't like. Or a question we often ask them that hasn't crossed their sourcing considerations. Are there things to consider when making a selection that might be not obvious?
One thing I can speak to is and sometimes customers share this, other times they haven't thought about it, is whether they plan on accessing to do any sort of maintenance underneath the deck, where they need to access a part of the aircraft by walking underneath our deck. You know, that can sometimes be useful depending on the size of the structures that we're designing, on whether we have the cross members running parallel to the ground at the base, where it's, you know, it's not necessarily difficult for a user to get over with a step, but it, you know, could potentially be a trip hazard or something like that. Any clearance issues like that underneath the deck is something that should always be considered as well.
I'd say a big one that often comes up as a surprise, and we're happy to walk through it, is the stair attachments. You know, typically sometimes stairs on systems only attach one way and you're stuck with it. Majority of our systems like this and that we're looking at, the stairs can attach in multiple configurations. And really that leads to a pretty big impact on space while in use, since the stairs are usually detached, and sometimes we show them in line with the platform, but really you can attach them in quite a few spots, and you may be able to accommodate something you're not seeing right away from the image. And looking at that, that's usually a pretty big benefit that we can explain and show what you can do with those staircases we have. So
yeah,
And I guess the final thing that I'm thinking from the user's perspective, obviously, if the ones that are sourcing this equipment are really doing what they should do, they're out there looking at what are different options, who offers this kind of product, and they're going to find that pricing ranges, quite a ways across the board. And really, they need to look at three things that are really driving that cost and driving their satisfaction. And one of those is the quality of that design. Is it created so that it makes sense, that it's intuitive of how it goes together, it's simple to assemble, and it actually is getting them where they need to be without getting in the way for other processes. Another one is the actual quality of the material, and the things like casters. You can buy very cheap casters or you can buy very expensive casters. Expensive ones aren't necessarily the best, but pretty well across the board, a cheap caster is a cheap caster. It just isn't worth it. And being able to know that these are going to roll very easy, they're not going to have bearings that pick up dirt and suddenly won't turn, or that they roll them over a door track or something and tear them apart. Things like that are little nuances that may not seem that significant until you find yourself having to replace a lot of parts. And then the quality, overall quality of construction, are these things put together well? We have some very high quality welders at our place that are held to very strict standards, and our quality program ensures that what goes out is good. And we've got the AS 9100 certification that pretty much requires that we're doing things the same way, and that we know what we're doing and we do them well. And that's something that is a value that a purchaser needs to be looking at. Is it going to be something that's going to last for years and years? We warranty ours for I think 10 years, which is almost unheard of on anything, but we build them to last. This is a sizable investment, and you shouldn't be having to worry about it becoming obsolete or worn out in just a few years. And I guess the final, it would be a fourth factor, is the ease of getting what you want. Working with our team, from you, Chad, and your sales folks, to the design team that Shandon's heading up, to find how easy it is to work with us and to get what you're wanting, and not be told, well, no, that's not the way ours is. This is what you got, take it or leave it. So, those are things, if you're purchasing, you need to make sure that who you're going to is really offering what you're going to find valuable.
Yeah. And I think you're right, Tommy. I mean, we try to share our knowledge, but at the same time, we want just as much input from that customer, so that we can help ensure that they're going to get what they need. And we're not afraid to let them know that, that's may not be the most practical version, and give them some insight as to why that they may not have thought of. But we want to hear them. We want to hear their opinion. We want to work with them, not tell them what they need. So I think that's a great point. Well, I want to thank everyone for coming today and being a part of this. And until next time, we'll sign off here. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you.